In 1997, when I released Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that book caused a bit of an upset because I said, your house is not an asset. So in today's world, if you want to be rich, you have to know the difference between assets versus liabilities. One of the reasons so many people are struggling financially today is simply because they're calling their liabilities assets, such as your house is not an asset, your car is not an asset, and things like that. So very simply, when I was a young boy, my rich dad taught me, he says, you have to understand a financial statement. So this is an income statement, this is a balance sheet. Now this is overly simplified. He says, what creates something to be an asset is very simply assets, cash flow money into your pocket. And a liability takes money from your pocket. So for most people, their houses are not assets or liabilities because every month it takes money to live in that house. Even those who say, well, I don't have any debt on my house, I've paid it off. Look, you still have insurance, still have upkeep, you still have maintenance. So let me explain this. I'm not saying don't buy a house or don't buy this and all this. I said if this is a house and I rent the house out and every month it's putting money in my pocket more than my expenses, then that house is an asset. Now that very same house, if it goes unrented or somebody trashes it or whatever they do, that very same house can be a liability. So a house can be an asset or a liability depending upon the most important word in business. It's called cash flow. Once again, if cash flows into your pocket, it's an asset. If cash flows out, it's a liability. Think of it this way. If you stop working today, how much cash keeps flowing in? That's from assets. And if cash keeps flowing out, that's a liability. So I'm not saying don't buy a house. I'm just saying don't call a liability an asset. So, again, the reason somebody thinks a house is an asset is because they lack financial intelligence or low financial IQ. They may go on to Harvard or in whatever, but if you can't tell an asset from a hole in the ground, I don't know what the heck you can tell the difference of, you know? So, it's really quite simply, the most important word, for those of you in business or finance, know, the most important word is not income, expense, asset, liability. The most important word in the English language for the rich is a word called cash flow. You've got to know where the cash is flowing. So what a rich person is doing is controlling cash flow. So if money comes from an asset into your pocket, it's an asset. So very simply, when I was 9 years old, my rich dad said, assets put money in your pocket whether you work or not. Okay, repeat after me. Assets put money in your pocket whether you work or not. Okay? And very simply, liabilities take money from your pocket. Okay? So what does a liability do? It takes money from your pocket. Okay? So the way you know you have an asset or a liability is very simply this. If let's say you're married with 3 kids and all this stuff, and you stop working, the money coming in is money from an asset, and the money going out is money from a liability. So if you happen to have a little house sitting over here, and it's sucking cash out of your pocket every month, it's a liability. And that's what I was saying. And I got hammered for that in the press. Today, with the subprime mess, you know, it's proven that millions and millions and millions of people who thought they were buying the asset, the American dream, were really buying a liability. Because there's no financial education in our school, most people do not understand financial statements. So this here is income, expense, assets, and liabilities. And the reason my poor dad was poor was very simple. Because he couldn't read a financial statement, because he don't have financial education in school. He was financially illiterate, although a PhD. And my poor dad always said, our house is an asset. And my rich dad said, your father may be well educated, but he can't tell assets from liabilities. So very simply, my rich dad said to me, assets, whether you work or not, put money in your pocket. So when a banker looks at your financial statement, the banker looks at this and says, oh, you have assets and you're putting money in your pocket. And if you look at your house, it's really a liability because every month it takes money from your pocket. Now I can hear people say, well, it's, you know, I don't have any debt on it, but still every month you have insurance, you have upkeep and expenses to it. So very simply, the reason I'm a rich man today was I knew the difference between assets and liabilities. And I get richer and richer because every year I add more assets to my balance sheet here. And so that's one of the biggest differences. And as my rich dad often said to me, he says, son, my banker has never asked me for my report card. My banker wants to see my financial statement because it's your financial statement that shows how high your financial IQ is. How smart are you with money? Asset versus liability. And these are very simple accounting terms, and again, I don't spell very well. So if I could explain very quickly why most people's houses are not assets. I'm not saying don't buy a house and don't have a dream house. I'm just saying know the difference in assets and liabilities. Because when you look at a financial statement, and this is my rough draft of one, this is the basis of financial intelligence, the basis of your financial IQ. This is why your banker asks you for your financial statement. Your banker does not ask you for your report card. The banker does not care if you had great grades or what school you went to. The banker wants to see your financial statement, income, and balance sheet because this shows them how smart you are financially. This is more sophisticated than just your credit score. But anyway, financial statements has income, expense, asset, and liability. So when most people buy a house, liability, when most people buy a house, what you have here is a mortgage. And it looks like you have a house here, which is an asset. But that's not really accurate. What determines if something's an asset or liability is the most important word in financial intelligence, and the word is cash flow. And we ask any accountant how important this is. So as a young boy, my rich dad very simply said, assets put money in your pocket. Cash flows into your pocket. And a liability takes money from your pocket. So if you're truthful about it, you say, well, does my house take money from my pocket? And I would say for most people, every month their house takes money from their pocket. And then the savers say, but my house is paid off. I don't have a mortgage on it. But you still have expense, insurance, and upkeep. So the house is taking money from your pocket. So my point here is this. If I have a house and money is flowing out of my pocket, that house is a liability.